Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Very grateful for all of you to be here. Also grateful for our friends on Zoom. Hi, friends. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Catherine Dwyer. I am the co-chair of the Young Professionals Group for the Monmouth Regional Chamber of Commerce. I have been part of the chamber for about 2 years now and have represented the YPG group since that point. I am very grateful today that we have 5 amazing speakers for today's presentations. The first part of the presentation will be our case study. We will have Fran Keane from CentraState, Kash from Greater Restaurants, and Dawn Malinowski from SocialTrend Marketing. They will describe how they grew their businesses throughout the pandemic, how they became more successful, and will answer, some questions that I feel all of us have asked ourselves throughout this crazy world that we're living in. I would like to give a quick shout out to New Jersey City University, Business Enhancement Training and Services, and Unique Parties for being our sponsors today. Does anyone have any questions before we begin? Please keep your questions until the end. We'll have each speaker speak for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have 20 minutes for Q&A.
And if anybody online wants to ask a question.
For our Zoom friends, if you have any questions, please use the reaction button to raise your hand, and we'll be sure to include you as well. Thank you, and here, let's get started.
Okay, I guess I get started. So thank you, everyone. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to sit here and tell you all about my fabulous employees at CentraState Healthcare System. They truly are heroes. I'm here and I'm happy to take time and brag about my people at CentraState Healthcare System. We truly were heroes, maybe not me, but certainly them. The impact that COVID-19 had on healthcare has been documented on news programs and magazines, newspapers. And so what I'm about to share with you may not necessarily be news to you, but it will be coming from a very personal place, my heart. But before I go into all of the great details, the gloomy details, I just want to kind of give you an overview of who CentraState is. So we're a fabulous healthcare system located in Freehold, New Jersey. We're considered a mid-sized hospital. We're full service. What makes us a system is not that we're just a healthcare hospital, but we're also 3 senior entities. One is a continued retirement community, and that is Applewood. We have an assisted living, which is Monmouth Crossing, and Manor is our long-term care facility. And we don't stop just there. We also have a number of rehab locations, as well as, I'm going to say billions, but I tend to exaggerate, physician practices. And recently, we just signed a partnership with Atlantic Health. So now we have tied up with a bigger system, and we are very excited by this partnership. So that's a little bit about who CentraState is. So what I'm specifically here to share with you is what our experience was during COVID, and I suspect that what I share with you today is not unusual, and that it occurred at healthcare systems throughout the states. It is important to note that prior to COVID in 2019, we began to experience labor shortages. We were already in a price war for talent. Our food service employees were also working at restaurants. So
I serve hospital food?
No, not at all. So we were already kind of in a tenuous position when this little virus started to knock at our door. So things did get worse. We didn't know all the time what to do, when to do it. But our mantra at the time was hang in there, better things are ahead, but we didn't think it would be 2 years later. December 2019, the World Health Organization first reported a pneumonia cluster in Wuhan, China. Wuhan, now it's part of our vernacular. January 2020, the first case arrives in the US, and these were patients that had traveled to China. 1 month later, we have our, so now that I have this in my hand, they start to shake, so just ignore that, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, so where was I? We had the first patients, COVID patients, that did not travel to China. It was in California, and that was in February of 2020. The fun is about to start. COVID had arrived and we needed to be prepared. So once it started to hit the US, we began to form our readiness team. We were looking for documentation. We were CDC, OSHA, they were our best friends, our best sources. We began to develop policy, medical protocols, begin to look at what our supplies were. PPE, personal protection equipment, is very important during any COVID event. Policies were rewritten many times. Care plans, supplies, everything. And then it happened. The mic goes off. To see what the timeline is, and once the first non-China related COVID hit in California, the governor started his task force, and that was when we saw our governor every day, 3 times a day. Very nice. But on March 4th, the first COVID case hit New Jersey. It was North Jersey, and 5 days later, we are in a state of emergency. And 1 day later, CentraState gets their first COVID patient. We had already established protocols, but it was nothing, everything we thought would happen, happened, but we didn't expect the intensity. That was what was overwhelming. So let me see where I am in my notes. So okay, is it working? Okay, doesn't sound like it is. So let me go back to where I was here. So once the state of emergency was called, that began the massive shutdown, right? Schools were closed, restaurants were closed, venues were closed. It was dark and dreary on the streets. But it was still light and bright at CentraState until March 10th. And at that point, while everything was closing there, we could not close patient care, but we did begin to close short stay, non-emergent. Everything that was non-emergent was shut down. Our physician practices shut down, but they were able to do telehealth visits. And that was kind of one of the good things that came out of COVID is prior to that, our physicians did not use televisits. And now all of a sudden they're using it, and now they don't want to stop using it. So, progress, something good came out of it. Also during the shutdown, we saw supermarkets have empty shelves. We had toilet paper deficiencies. How we overcame it, I'll never know. And then probably another great thing that came out of COVID, Zoom. Yes. Zoom has taken over the world. So I told you the outside world is dark and isolated. And once we received our first COVID patient, it also, my wonderful, vibrant hospital was dark. It was quiet. I don't want to say dreary, but behind the scenes, a lot was happening. And during this first week or so, and maybe longer, fear and concern was very evident. Our workforce, our patient care providers were beyond fearful, but they still donned what they needed to don. They took a deep breath, and maybe with tears, they took care of the patients. And what they saw, they could never have imagined. Part of the fear that they had was not always about the patients, but it was also about taking this virus home. So you heard stories about people getting dressed and undressed in their garage, having the family leave their area until they went into a shower. I mean, that was unbelievable how much fear they had. And we didn't know a whole lot about this virus. And what we come to realize that the fear we had was legitimate. It was a scary virus. We began to get requests from employees to not take care of COVID patients. mostly for medical concerns. Pregnant women were concerned. They didn't know what impact it would have on their child. We gave medical exemptions where we could, but after a while, there was nothing but COVID in the house, so there was no other place we could assign them. Now, I said we began to close resources, but we didn't send any of our workforce home. We employed them in different capacities, so we had to do symptom testing. You see that now. That's something now that's still in our menu. In order to get into a hospital, you have to get your temperature taken. You have to sign off or validate that you don't have symptoms. The shaking is beginning. Don't pay any attention. So we had a symptom center, and so we had physical therapists doing temperatures, being paid their full salary. So anybody who wanted to work was able to work. We assigned them as symptom takers, helping hands, tray deliverers, anything we could do. What also began to become apparent is that this virus was not only a killer, but really harmed the lungs. And so we began to see many, if not all of our patients intubated, which meant we are now a full critical care facility, which means we are 1-to-2 ratios. I already told you about our vacancies. So we began to see people that were not able to cope in the environment and took themselves out. So what we also began to take advantage of, which we never had to do before, was agency nursing, agency staff. And you may have heard that they probably are 2 to 3 times what we pay our staff. So that has a financial, fiscal had to do to try and create parity, but to also incentivize and reward staff for doing the work that they were doing is we had incentives. And so the more shifts they took, they got more incentives. So we started to increase their salary as well. Meanwhile, we're not being paid much either. So it's an amazing, I don't know how our finance department did it, but we have FEMA to thank because FEMA gave a lot of money so that we could take care of our patients. So I told you that we became critical care. So not everybody died, many people did. Many people were in our hospital intubated for months. But one of the joys that we had was when someone was extubated and began to recover. And when that person went home, and many did, we had our celebration walk. And you've seen these on television. I think you may have seen it on Grey's Anatomy or one of these. And that is when somebody was going home, our overhead chimed a lovely, joyful sound, and we all ran to the corridors, and I call it the woo-woo line. We all woo, 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 good luck, congratulations. And their family was there to greet them, so it was very, very moving. Next. So that's kind of the background, but what did we have to do and where was the impact? So overall, our overall process from a workforce thing was team member safety. And so these strategies underneath were what we focused on. So mitigating PPE shortages, I told you we thought we were going to have them. So just to get a sense of this is a picture of what they had to wear. So full on going into a COVID room, which I tell you now they were all COVID room, was a cap, goggles, maybe a face shield, an N95 mask, gown, booties, gloves. And that's pretty much what they wore all day. We began to get notices that our N95s, whether it was a brand or a size, was going to be discontinued. So that was a concern. And fortunately, we were always able to find replacements. But unfortunately, that meant we had to refit every team member. And fit testing is they wear a hood, they have to smell a smell. I don't know if it's good if they smell it or if it's bad that they smell it, but you do this. So this would often be a 3 to 4 week event. And by the time we finished fit testing them and giving them their new mask, guess what? Time to replace another one. But fortunately, we never ran out. At one point, we thought we were going to run out of gowns. And so we pulled together a committee to make gowns out of garbage bags. Fortunately, we never had to use it. I can't imagine what that would have done to the morale. Overall, we succeeded in the PPE management. Everybody was safe. The next thing came, I said earlier, we had lots of communication and recommunication. Our protocols were driven by Ocean CDC. These were changing daily and created great upset in the organization. You never got to anyone, no matter how much you did leadership rounding, no matter how much you got out. So you usually got a call from saying, well, nobody told me. And so we increased our rounding, but I have to tell you, communication continued to be a challenge, and we did the best we could. I told you we set up symptom stations to make sure that our employees were not coming in ill. Overall, the first round, we did have exposures, but we did not have as many as were to come with the surge. Managing exposures and illnesses were spearheaded by our employee health team. A call center was established. It was staffed by MDs, nurse practitioners, and certified medical assistants. They set the protocols, they did flow charts, and we used them to determine how long a team member would have to be out of work and when they could return. During this time, we advanced sick pay for team members that did not have any sick pay balances. So we did our best to maintain their financial lifestyle. And last but not least, probably the greatest morale builder was community support. Restaurants sent meals on a regular basis. Pizza was a great expectation. I would often be there at night doing temperature taking and symptom checking, and I would see boxes up to the sky of pizza. So thank you to all of the pizza restaurants. Thank you to all the restaurateurs. We had donations of PPE, needed equipment. I have to do a big shout out to Senator Gopal and Home Depot. They were out there banging the bushes and getting us what we needed when we needed it. Girl Scout cookies, how about that? Nobody can say bad for Girl Scout cookies. I think what Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore did is that they bought back the Girl Scout cookies and then sent them to the hospital. So that was a great treat. And perhaps the one item that provided the most therapy were the homemade masks. They came in pallets. They had to be stored in their own building. And what we would do is that all of the temperature stations, we would have baskets of the masks, and employees would come as if it were a shopping event. Do you have a purple one? Yes, I do. I even have the jazzled one. So that was the retail therapy that everybody needed. So by the end of spring, the COVID numbers are down. Thank you. Our COVID numbers are down, and May 12th, we're starting to reopen, not just the hospital, but restaurants. We're eating outside. We're meeting with family and friends. Flowers are blooming, and so are we. I think in the end, as we gained knowledge of this virus and experienced our victories, we discovered our superpower. We had fear no more. We are fearless, and fearless is here is our tagline. These are pictures of some of my staff. We had picture taken where they could do Rosie the Riveter, we can do it. Wherever we could, we had events, social distance, masks when they were appropriate. So we met the enemy and we defeated it. However, the real game changer is just around the corner, months away. And I would like a drum roll, please. Vaccines. I know it's controversial, but leave the controversy aside. It was the miracle on Main Street, and in case you don't know, CentraState is on Main Street. Pfizer, Moderna, and Janssen are all approved, and we are ready and raring to go. Our first employee vaccination schedule was for December 12th, 2020, and about 30 days later, we opened it up to the community. People came from miles to receive their vaccine at CentraState. They were grateful. Did you ever stand in a line that wrapped around the building, and when you got to where you were, you said you were so happy to be there? Never has that happened. It happened at CentraState. We had very few complaints, and at the end of the day, we vaccinated we gave out over 86,000 doses of the vaccine. Off topic a bit, I think what never was talked about when we were going through this was polio. They were always focused on the Spanish flu 1919. But as I was experiencing this, I was remembering getting the polio sugar cube. We were standing in line for the sugar cube. I guess I got the vaccine, I just don't remember. I black out negative things. Sugar cubes, I remember. So it struck me that this was very much like the polio vaccine war. And thank God for polio and that vaccine, that it made it possible for us to get this vaccine in record time. It was a life changer and a game changer. Just my 2 cents. Next. As you see, I said 86, I exaggerate. 82,000 as of 2/22. We're probably at 86,000 now. So this was a labor of love. 90% of our team members are fully vaccinated, meaning 2 doses. And we are currently providing booster shots. We still have walk-in clinics open to the public. On this slide, you see a very happy community member. I wish I knew her name, she's lovely. And our very bright and talented employee health team members, and hidden way in the middle is our CEO, John Ribbon, who is retiring April 9th and will be his last day. But hold on, it ain't over. Another drum roll, please. Know you were going to have it. The surge is coming, that nasty little variant Omicron. Probably worse than the first round. Shorter, but worser. This nasty little variant caused a surge, but it wasn't just that, it was also all of the holiday gathering. During this time, we had more team members exposed and more team members unable to work. We had to set up a symptom center because employees could come to work feeling well and in the middle of the day start feeling yucky. And we had 2 viruses to contend with. Am I yucky because it's flu or am I yucky because it's COVID? So we had to test probably about 80 people in 1 week to see, and 75 of them were COVID positive. I lost my spot. The good news is if they did catch COVID at this time, the symptoms weren't as bad because they were vaccinated. So they were ill, it's more like a flu, and were able to return to work. Today, so the good news is it was only a couple of weeks. It started December 15th, it was over February 12th, and we are returning now to the new normal. Today, all of our services are open. Patients can have limited visitors. And we are, as I say, back to the new normal. In fact, we are better than that because our new normal now is, next slide, we had our first COVID-free day in 2 years, and we've been COVID-free since. Now be clear, it doesn't mean patients don't have COVID, but they're not coming in for COVID, okay? So before I close this presentation, I would just like to share with you what has changed for us since COVID. Masks are still here at CentraState now, and in all of our venues, we require them. Some of the outside entities, my pickleball court requires it, just to get in, not to play. We are still checking symptom on team members, patients, and visitors. We are doing weekly antigen testing for the non-vaccinated team members. Zoom meetings, as I said, are a huge game changer. We have in-person meetings, but Zoom is always an option, and remote working is also now part of our options. Our vacancy rates continue to climb, which means we are using more agencies. Right now, we have over 190 agency staff working, and we're happy to have them because that means we're able to deliver care. CentraState is operating on all cylinders. We have high patient volume, good news. Bad news that they're sick, but good news that they're coming here. We're able to open up our new services, and we are growing in leaps and bounds. We continue to offer and expand support services to our team members to restore and expand their resiliency. They worked hard, and some of them still need support. I am very optimistic about the future of CentraState, and I'm looking forward to it.
And on behalf of all my team members, we want you to know it was our privilege to care for you and your family.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Paul, I want to thank you for inviting me here today. And thank you all in attendance for showing up. So I'm not just talking to myself, which is something I tend to do. I think this is the third time in about 25, 30 years that I've had the opportunity to speak to the chamber at a chamber event. First time I was in my 20s, and I thought to myself, what could I possibly say to these people that they haven't already experienced themselves? I couldn't help but think, I'm not relevant. Fast forward now in the world of the internet and social media, as a 55-year-old restaurateur, I now know I'm irrelevant. With that said, I'm Rob Kash. I own a group of restaurants called Great Restaurants NJ, and we currently own and operate Metropolitan Café, Nonna's, 2 tray restaurants, a couple of Rosalitas, and on-location catering right here in Monmouth County. I've been doing it for about 30 years now, and I'm sure this sounds really impressive to a lot of you, but imagine the fear I had when I started hearing about the coronavirus and the possibility of the world shutting down. It's a lot of responsibility and stress. My birthday is March 1st, and in 2020, I went out in Manhattan for a birthday dinner, and while on a cab ride on my way to see Book of Mormons, the news was discussing COVID-19 and how it's kind of made its way to the East Coast. My cab driver coughed, and me and my girlfriend smirked. Must be COVID, ha ha. 2 weeks later was the weekend of March 14th, and my restaurants, for the most part, were humming along as normal. One of the locations was a little off on a Friday night, but basically it was a regular busy Friday night. We started hearing more and more about the virus. The president had spoken about it just a couple of days prior. The next night, Saturday night, it was like someone hit a dimmer switch on my diners, and all of a sudden my restaurants were all at about 40–50% normal capacity. It was obvious that the coronavirus wasn't just a potential health threat, it was a real threat, and it was a real threat to my businesses. Trying to be proactive, immediately my partners and I, we got together and began discussing partial unemployment for the staff, especially those tipped employees that weren't going to make the money that they were accustomed to making, and discussing all the possible scenarios. So the next day we set up to meet with the staff at each of the places. I had printed out that night, I stayed up printing out instructions for partial unemployment, how to file, etc., so they could all be ahead of the game in the event that the Saturday wasn't a fluke and the world really was going to lock itself down. Sunday was like somebody literally shut the switch off. There's nobody in any of the restaurants. And little did I know that literally the next day, which was Monday, March 16th, Governor Murphy made the decision for everyone. We will all be in lockdown. Slow the spread, flatten the curve, call it what you want. I called it going out of business for 2 weeks. Fear and its uncertainty, not necessarily in that order. So with a payroll of over 250 employees, I had to figure out now a plan B. It looks like partial unemployment was going to be full unemployment. For tipped employees, I couldn't imagine having to pay them what they normally need to live on, in addition to my manager's salaries, kitchen staff, hostesses, my bookkeeper, rents, mortgages, and food bills. It was only 2 weeks though, so let's see how it goes. For now, I'll pay everyone as best I can, even if they weren't working any hours and there wasn't any money coming in. Scared. So, needless to say, 2 weeks in government world is really 2.5 months. And at first, I too was scared of the virus and couldn't imagine leaving my home. The only good thing from my perspective, and maybe not so much from my twins, was who were in their last semester of college, because they both came home for the remainder of the semester. So we got to eat as a family, spend some more time together, and it was nice to have them around, but it was a stressful time together. After about 3–4 weeks of the shutdown and the hiatus from operating the restaurants, I started to do takeout meals. We were now allowed to do takeout, prepared meals, and I even started selling groceries and cleaning products. At first, it started with me by myself, then one cook, then I added a server or a manager for deliveries, which was amazing. They were able to get back and forth in under a minute because there was literally no cars on the road. Initially, I texted friends and close customers. The groceries were really just a convenience and a way to stay busy and in touch with my customers, because there really isn't a whole lot of profits in doing groceries, meat, fish, vegetables, unless you sell a giant shopping cart full. I was basically a little old-fashioned shop owner, receiving phone calls and texts, handwriting orders till all hours of the night, totaling the prices with a calculator and calling people back for credit card info or cash on deliveries. I was running outside to the back door of the restaurant with gloves and masks, placing bags in people's trunk because they were horrified at the possibility of contact with another person. It was exhausting and truthfully depressing. My 3 most successful days were Easter, where I served 250 brunches, 200 dinners to go. Mother's Day, where I did another 250 brunches and 300 dinners. And the third best day was when my paper and janitorial supplier, in addition to the normal toilet paper and rubber gloves, sent me the mother load. I got hand sanitizer, Clorox cleaner, wipes, and Lysol. I hit the jackpot. I was officially the most popular guy in Freehold, maybe even Monmouth County. So besides being a butcher and a baker and a toilet paper supplier, I was exhausted. I started inviting employees back to work, some who refused because they were truly afraid of the virus or of getting an elderly family member sick, others who were very happy receiving $600 in addition to the regular unemployment benefits, courtesy of our federal government. Basically, I was just bringing back staff as needed or as they wanted to come back. I gave first opportunity to those who were accustomed to making more money or those who really wanted to work. In order to keep my kitchen workers busy, I started doing prepared meals for local soup kitchens, for Phil, which is the Monmouth County Food Bank, local charities in school, and before you know it, I had almost all my staff back, at least those who were willing to come back. At one point, I was doing a few thousand meals a week in addition to the groceries and takeout. Not my normal business by any means, but it was something. At some point, we were allowed to add cocktails to go, so I purchased these really cute cocktail jars on Amazon, made little stickers, and put my bartenders back to work as well. Between worrying about the future of the world, the future of my business, my employees and family, my new career of order taker, cashier, delivery director, food purchaser, and shop owner, I was working a 20-hour day. I personally lost a little over 15 pounds and couldn't wait for the sense of security or normalcy. This insecurity and stress was killing me. Finally, after the first false start, the governor eventually allowed us to open up to the public, outside dining only. Another new business for me. I felt kind of like I owned a car wash. If it rained, business was closed. The major difference, unlike the car washes, in the restaurant business, food spoils. Lucky, I'm happy to say that since we opened for outside dining, our restaurants have been extremely busy. My staff has basically all come back, and they're all happy to be there. I had checked in with most of them on a weekly basis and spent numerous hours a day helping, or rather a week, helping them with unemployment claims and issues, and they were very appreciative of me, and they were ready to work. And having them all returned allowed me the opportunity to take advantage of the restaurant guests who were really jonesing to come out, dine, and see other human beings and just have a good time. Truthfully, I was very fortunate. I only had 2 staff members not return to work since the pandemic started, one for health reasons and the other due to a career change. I learned a lot after all these years of business, specifically the importance of staff and staying supportive of them. Without good people, you're alone, and it really takes a team, a good team to accomplish things and to have a semi-normal life. The pandemic taught me the importance of social media, at least from a business perspective. Personally, I'm not in love with it. It enabled me to interact with my friends and customers, as well as reaching out to potential new customers. When using social media, it's important to understand that each platform serves a different purpose. You have to consider who you're targeting, how to get your message out, and what it is you're trying to accomplish. I learned the following. Texting is something you can use for close friends and customers you have a personal relationship with. It should not be used as a tool to market to strangers. Remember the idea that 20% of your customers are 80% of your business? These are the people who really supported me at the beginning and came through for me. They were as much a benefit to me as I was a service to them. I texted this 20% and they responded. The power of Instagram was amazing when it came to marketing specialty meals like Easter and Mother's Day, and when I opened up the outside dining. Young people that I'd never attracted before were flocking to me. Instagram really proves the expression that a picture is worth 1,000 words. When I had something interesting and simple to share, Instagram was truly valuable. Facebook, which I had always viewed as trying to drink through a fire hose, wound up being a wonderful way of interacting with customers. When I had Lysol, the world found out I had Lysol. Who would have known that having a deodorizing spray would get you the most likes and shares? When you touch on something people want or need, they talk about it by sharing this information with their friends. Also, don't make everything an advertisement. Sometimes just reaching out and sending a personalized message or newsworthy information to your friends and followers is appreciated. On a few occasions, I donated meals to first responders, handed out meals to local schools, hospitals, and kids, and I donated over 5,000 masks and face shields to CentraState Hospital. My sister does a lot of business with China, and they mail me boxes. And every day after my 20-hour day, I pull up to the garage, and there was a box of something. I opened up with these face shields, so I would deliver them over to CentraState. So I remained active in the community and shared this on my social media, and people noticed and appreciated it. And this comes back in droves, again, doing well by doing good. So finally, keep on top of your email list. I constantly keep my list fresh and purge those names that don't open or respond to my posts. People who work at a desk read their emails, and if you show them something they want and make it easy for them to react, they will respond and engage. What's easier than hitting a button from your desk or phone? Unfortunately, Jeff Bezos figured that out before I did. So. I think all in all, my experience during these uncertain times really just enforced what I always practiced in business. That in order to be successful, nothing can take the place of hard work and persistence. Engage your customers, stay relevant by welcoming change, and most importantly, treat your staff and customers right. Thanks.
Thank you. You actually did some of my work for me, so I don't have to do that. I am Dawn. I'm going to put on my timer because a lot of you know that I can talk about this stuff forever, so I don't want to do that to you. I am Dawn. I own SocialTrend Marketing Solutions. We do social media marketing. He's already talked about that. Website design, Google Ads management, search engine optimization, email marketing, basically any digital marketing. At the beginning of COVID, I think it was Friday the 13th, my son reminded me of that. I did walk a lot of the last 2 years at it, and he's been helping me. I had a meltdown. I was standing in my living room crying hysterically. I think any business owner had a meltdown or a few during all of this. It was a fear for not only myself, but my clients. Everyone I help relies on me to find and get customers. And to me, it was just this burden that was immense and insane. So the next day I kind of woke up and was like, we're going to help everybody. So we gave every single client that stayed. Most of our clients did not stop their marketing, which I'm going to talk about later. But the ones that stayed, we actually gave extra free services to. Now, keep in mind, I had a 6, 8, and 10-year-old at the time. So, and a husband that's a police officer. So basically, I was working double, if not triple time, homeschooling all day and working all night. And which is why I blocked a lot of the last 2 years out. It was not, let's say it was not the best of times, but it was something I look back on, and so many good things came out of it, certainly. So working crazy, helping clients, it was insane, but it was wonderful. A few things that came out of it is that something that Fran mentioned is the Zoom. The fact that there is Zoom worked amazing. So we could still talk to all our clients. We can make sure we're meeting their goals. And we didn't have to go see them. It actually works out really well continually now. Hey, do you want me to come see you, or can we, meet over Zoom? Doing what I do, I like to work one-on-one with clients. I like to see what they're doing, but I like to also talk to them regularly. Once I've already come into your business, if we could do a Zoom every once in a while, that would be amazing, and a lot more people are realizing that Zoom is a powerful tool. Something else that came out of COVID that I find phenomenal as a female business owner is the fact that a lot of males are kind of saw what I had done for like many, many years of working full-time, but also raising kids. They're in school, but sometimes they're home. I'm outside on a phone call. One time, I actually had 3 kids screaming inside. I'm holding a door on the phone because I didn't want anybody to hear my kids in the background. But you know what? Now you can hear kids in the background because everyone has screaming kids in the background. It's made such a difference that people, it's something that is the norm now, and it makes it so much less stressful. We can do everything now. That's not always a good thing, but we can do what we want to with the kids in the background, and it's okay. It's not as such a big deal anymore. So to me, that's been a huge, huge positive with COVID. So one thing, the biggest thing that I want as a takeaway is don't ever stop your marketing. It was the clients that stayed with their marketing definitely are the ones that are still doing well. We had 2 Medi-Spas. One Medi-Spa stopped their marketing and one kept going. Now they were closed, but they did not stop their marketing. The one great thing about the fact that they stayed is a lot of people did stop their marketing. So things like Google Ads skyrocketed because Google Ads is based on what your competitors are paying. If your competitors pull their entire marketing budget and you're the only one there, it blows up, and that's what happened. The client that stayed with us actually ended up having to pull some of her marketing dollars later because she is so busy. The one that didn't, he did come back to us eventually because we're awesome and why not? But he's doing fine right now, don't get me wrong, but he is not to the point that the client is, because what happened during COVID, as I'm sure a lot of you did, what did you start doing? You started researching things. You're at home, you're researching how can I redo my kitchen? Or, the Medi-Spas. I'm in these sweatpants. They don't look as nice as I probably should. Maybe I should get something done. So people were researching. And so they didn't call them because they were closed, but they were doing their research. So what did they research on? Websites. You have to make sure that your website is up to date. So things like it has to be attractive, there has to be a call to action, testimonials, geographic area. You have to make sure that you tell people where you go, because just because you're based out of, let's say, Wall, New Jersey, doesn't mean that you don't service other towns or other states. Make sure that geographic area is on there. During COVID, you have to make sure that they had to say whether they were open or closed. Certainly for restaurants, once they started going in, yes, we have sit down outside. This is what we have, making sure you're telling them, using that social media as the same point. Having on your website, making sure the services you offer are on there. If you're going to do all this marketing and they go to your website to try to see what it is you do and it's not there, they're going to pop off. Making sure that anything that you do that I'm going to talk about, make sure you are trying to find your ideal clientele. That was a big thing. Some people just wanted to market. They didn't want to flounder. They didn't want to lose their business. Let's just throw everything out there. Well, you have to find your ideal clientele because in life, in the life of your business, you want to make sure you're getting the clients that are going to stay with you. You want to make sure you're getting those ideal clients because those are the ones that are not only going to value your services, they're the ones that are also going to refer you. So one huge thing we saw was the fact that people were home. Before COVID, people were looking more on their phone than they were on their desktop. Now it's half and half. More people were on their computers doing their work on their wonderful Zoom meetings, and they started, maybe if they were bored on the Zoom meetings, they were researching on the computer side by side. They weren't picking up their phone as much. So making sure that your desktop looks as good as your phone, or your website should be responsive, so it should look good on everything, but ensuring that is the case. Social media marketing, as Rob pointed out, is immense and amazing, and making sure that you're up to date with that. One thing that happened during COVID were the Clubhouse. Clubhouse skyrocketed during COVID. Did anybody on that? Anybody hear it? No? Just so you know, there's I have some methods. There is, if anybody wants to know, Renee Rossi, who works for me, is an expert in Clubhouse, and she's actually doing a presentation on it next Thursday, I believe. So if you want to learn about it, come talk to me. But things like Clubhouse and things that people didn't realize were going to be a big deal ended up being a huge deal. And Clubhouse is great because it's kind of like a networking tool that you could do online in your pajamas without anybody seeing you. You don't even have to get dressed from the top up. You can have your sweatpants on in your pajamas everywhere. And so that is a tool that came out of nowhere. And in our business, we have to be on top of the trends. We have to be on top of the new social networks. We have to be on top of anything new that's digital. But during COVID, even more so, because it changed. It always changes rapidly. Every day we go onto Facebook or Google Ads and something is different. But the rapidness was insane at that point. So just making sure you're on top of things is huge. But Facebook, Instagram, everyone that owns a business should probably be on that. Unless you have like huge restrictions, you need to be on it. I see someone right now that has huge restrictions. And then LinkedIn, if you are here, you need to be on LinkedIn. If your LinkedIn profile, personal, your business one you should have if you own a business. You should definitely have it. But your personal one should be up to date. The last statistic we have is only 1% of people on LinkedIn post regularly. So either help me bump that up or be part of the 1% that posts. People are realizing it. I see Erica's stuff all the time. I see Mark Vigiani stuff all the time. And other people are seeing those things. And I'm sure if you could follow the statistics, they really do very well. We have a client that is a architecture firm. And we do their Facebook, we do their Instagram, we do their business LinkedIn, and we do 2 of their personal LinkedIns. Their personal LinkedIns are what gets them the clients. It's what gets them the most of the brand awareness, and it's just a little bit of effort. So if you're going to leave with anything today, don't stop your marketing. Get yourself on LinkedIn and make sure it's up to date. There's more. Do everything I said, but those are the top 2. Business, Google Business. Making sure your Google Business profile, not only have you claimed it, if you have not claimed your Google Business profile as an entrepreneur, make sure you do that. Then make sure it's up to date. The hours are up to date. Again, during COVID, once things started opening up, those hours had to be there. Maybe they were completely different. Maybe a restaurant was open, from sun up till sundown, just trying to get that food out, or maybe they only had specific hours. People needed to know that. You need to know it now. So making sure, and it's free. All these things, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, your Google business page, all free. Make sure you're doing it. Google Ads, that's my favorite. So for most clients, Google Ads, it's expensive. It definitely is, but the return on investment is amazing. We can track how many phone calls you have gotten. We can track how many clicks are to your website. We can see, okay, you got 300 clicks to your website and no one called you. What's wrong with your website? Are the services not there? Is it not pretty? Is it not functional? Is it not fast enough? We can see what's going on. We can see how many people have called you. We can see how many people go to your contact page. Maybe people like to email more than they like to call. It's amazing. Now, again, it's expensive and it's not for everyone. It is not for everyone. We have a client that is a plumber. It's $52 a click. You're not going to make that back. It's just you're not. So the people it is for, it works really well. If you're not doing Google Ads, make sure you look into it. Also make sure you kind of, if you don't hire us, hire somebody that knows what they're doing. I always tease that Google is run by geniuses, and they all are geniuses, but they have 0 common sense. So to get to what you need to do is very, very, very hard to do. Because it is, we're Google Ads certified. it's hard, it's ever changing. It's not a set it and forget it kind of machine. So make sure you're doing that. Search engine optimization, that's the organic search. You can do that on your own. There are definitely things that you want to do out there, but to get your search engine optimization up, which means if somebody Googles you, the first ones are those Google ads. Down at the bottom, that is the organic search. You want to be on top of that as well. Now, the thing with SEO is you always want it to do it yesterday. It takes a very, very long time. So during COVID, that is actually the first thing. If any of our clients did want to pull any of their marketing, that was the first thing I said to pull. It is a long-term goal. If they needed extra cash, like take it out of there, because if we already didn't get you to the first page, it's going to take a while to get you there. If you're on the first page, you're going to stay there for a very long time. So during these 2 weeks, we thought, during these couple months, use that money for something else. Use that money that's going to get you something right now, like Google Ads or social media. Use it for something and that's what's great about SEO. You need to do it. You need to do it long term. But if there is, a global pandemic, it is a place that you can pull the money from. So that was one big thing that we did. I think that's it. I talked really fast, so I can go through this pretty quickly. One of the biggest thing we say all the time is, as I said, don't pull your marketing. The clients that we had that did not pull their marketing, now maybe they pulled SEO, because I advised that, but they didn't pull their social media marketing, which was amazingly successful for everybody. They did not pull, they made sure their website was up to date. Now that everything has calmed down, make sure your website is beautiful. Make sure you're on Google. Your Google business page is free. Google Ads is so important. But my biggest takeaway is stopping marketing to save money is like stopping your watch to save time. Right? That's Henry Ford. Do not stop your marketing at all. And that was one huge thing. Like I always said it beforehand. I've owned my business for 9 years. You can't stop your marketing. That is not something you can do. But we really learned that it was the case during COVID. Make sure you continue because of the fact that you want to be ahead of everyone else. If everyone else is pulling their marketing in any way, shape, or form, you're going to be there front and center. You're always going to be there, and everybody knows that they can always come to you. So I think that's it for me. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Dawn.
So I think all three of these speakers hit the nail on the head and gave us wonderful presentations that all kind of aligned. So I'm really glad I put you in the order that I did.
That was good.
Because the transition was fabulous. So just a little bit round of applause for the three of them. I'm sure most of us have questions, but who's brave enough to ask a question? Tom?
Rob, a lot of restaurants were able to put outdoor facilities, their parking lots, their patios, places that technically were zoned way back when. Does the state or the towns give you any pushback as to removing those, or are you able to keep those? Any thoughts on that?
So initially, I don't know if it was, I think it was New Jersey that kind of just made it a general rule, cooperate, be nice, and let us do what we want, even though they did hit us for some silly like $75 fee, which I really didn't understand. But the towns are starting to get their acts together and saying, listen, we don't want you in parking lots or streets. Certain locations I have, like downtown Freehold has a really nice outdoor cafes year round, or at least during the summer, but those places which really flourished because people weren't eating on blacktop in parking lots with a tent around them. I really did well there, but I am seeing there's a big trend in people wanting to still eat outside, whether it's just that they've have a new love for it, or some people are still a little scared of the virus and trying to be safe. So we're all looking for ways to increase our outdoor seating and outdoor capacity, but they are getting back to now telling us tents have to come down and things like that.
Mr. Former President has a question. If you want to unmute yourself.
It's not a question, but first I'm not sure if you guys are monitoring our chat, but if you can repeat the questions in the room because we can't hear them. But my thing is more of a testimonial to CentraState. I have to tell you, you guys have been fantastic through this whole pandemic. My family's had to use your hospital several times, and we have some extenuating circumstances, and you have done everything possible to make sure that my family has been taken care of, including a 5.5-hour visit into the ER yesterday. You guys have taken all the precautions, but also have been very compassionate to families that have different circumstances. As everyone that knows me knows, my mother has dementia, and there was a no visitor policy for a long time, but you guys allowed my father to be there overnight with her when she had to be there. So thank you to CentraState for all that you did throughout this pandemic, as well as your commitment to this chamber and its growth. Without CentraState, I don't know where this chamber would have been over the years, and I don't know where this community would have been without CentraState. So thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that we're saying too, and I think it's kind of interesting actually, the mix that you have now of your current employees with staff. Do you think that that's going to be something in the future that you're still going to have that as you turn over that side, that you're going to have to maintain that piece to it?
Yes, I think so. And I think it's true for all businesses. Prior to COVID, we had a very high level of, 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, and, smaller on the entry. And we used to say if we could get them to stay for 5 years, we had them for life. It's no longer like that. As I said, we looked down at agency and we thought we were really cool because we didn't have agency. And when we needed them, we were so grateful that they were there. I think, the future of healthcare, we've just implemented through our partnership with Atlantic Health, we were able to implement, which will truly transform our delivery, Epic, which is a digital data, whatever, coding and all of that stuff. We've just implemented that. So we believe that that's going to improve our workforce and perhaps not necessarily eliminate positions, but maybe change the positions so that they're more multitask, meaning a PCT might be more than a patient care tech. They might be doing a little bit of coding or whatever. And I think, remote working will open up avenues. Technically, medical coding can be done anywhere. So maybe we can start to hire somebody from Indiana to do our coding. So I think those are exciting opportunities, but right now it is a little scary. But don't be afraid to come. We'll take good care of you, as the president said.
Anybody else?
Do I still
Anybody?
get full pay?
Yeah.
Anybody on Zoom have any additional questions? I'll just give it a minute for them to hear me. Joanne?
First of all, fantastic presentations by all of you. This is wonderful, even on Zoom, this is fantastic. Something I wanted to add also about CentraState, because I actually had the privilege of writing about it. Not only has CentraState done a wonderful job handling the COVID as it unfolded and with vaccines and treatments, but something I don't think you mentioned, I happen to know that you have a wonderful post-COVID recovery program that was put in place, I think, late last year, and I think it's a bit groundbreaking. So there are people that I know personally who are dealing with, I think what's called long COVID symptoms that last long afterwards. And CentraState has a program that is specifically addressing that and has physicians working with patients for that. So I thought that was worth mentioning also, and congratulate you on doing that.
I'll bring it back.
Thank you, Joanne. Anybody else?
Is this working?
Yes.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentations. You did wonderful presentations. I think my question is going to be catered towards Rob and Dawn, just because I feel like you might have had a committee working with you to help you make decisions. And it seems like you two were more kind of like on your own running this business. So I really wanted to understand, I know these are but how did you, where did you find the funding to be able, like for the outside businesses? I know sometimes for the restaurants, they might not have had the funding to be able to do that. So just really like how did you figure out, what was that process like for you?
Glad you brought that up, because it was one thing that I forgot to, I looked at my notes, something I forgot to discuss. I was lucky enough in the fact that we had been working remotely anyway, and I never had to stop. So I'm a little bit different. Some of my clients had to close their doors, but I never did. So the biggest thing was the working remotely part, which we had been doing for years. I had an office in Tom's River, and we just didn't go to it. So we were using OneDrive, we had been using Teams, that's my favorite. We had been using Zoom already, not to the capacity that everybody is using now, which I love. But that was one thing I was super lucky. We already had everything in place that everybody else was kind of floundering to do. So we lost some clients. And then one of the biggest things is we said no to no one. So we actually, the Ocean County Health Department reached out to me because I had done their website years and years ago. And they had to get a scheduling app in place in 2 days. So I didn't want to do that. So I called a bunch of other businesses. Ocean County Health Department needs an app in 2 days. Will you do it? Everyone else said no. So I came back to them and I was like, I've never done this before and I will do it for you. So we just said no to no one and we jumped in. We jumped in with the saying, we've never done this before. So don't get mad if it doesn't work. But one thing that helped me with that is now I've done the scheduling app for almost, for many of the different parts of Ocean County now, because it worked for Ocean County Health Department. So they told a bunch of, I've done it for Union County. So for me, it was actually, during that time, again, I was working double, lost some people, not making as much, and homeschooling and doing everything. But as far as technically, we were able to just jump right in, and my employee and our contractors are amazing. So everybody was on the same page. We said no to no one. So, we weren't going out as much. We were trying to get from restaurants for food just because I couldn't cook when they were open. But other than that, we weren't spending as much either. So luckily it kind of all evened out money-wise for me. And then technically we were just there to go, there to be there, and we were able to go from there.
So for those of you who know me, I can't sit still. As a matter of fact, this is probably the longest I've ever been in a chair. I'm famous for eating, standing up, and running out. So the thought of 2 weeks off was actually kind of cool for me for a little while. I was like, this will be great. I'll actually relax. And then started watching more and more television and seeing the news. They said, 200,000 New Yorkers were going to die in the next 2 weeks. And it really got scary. And when I got past that, I had always intended, in I guess April of 2020, I was supposed to do a big renovation at one of the restaurants. So I had a lot of money put aside, and I wound up doing most of the renovations myself for the first 2-3 weeks with my partner, and it wound up saving a lot of money. I used that money initially to pay some staff for the first 2 weeks, and then truthfully, PPP kicked in, which was really a lifesaver. There were a lot of government and even local, Monmouth County gave grants, the state of New Jersey gave grants. You just had to take advantage of all of them and use them properly. PPP initially it was, you have to get it out of your pockets or else. I didn't take it until I knew that the rules and the laws worked for me. What good is having money that if I spent it and gave it, it didn't do any good? So it was all a matter of just trying to stay on top of things. Worrying and stress was a very good motivator for me to continue reading. And I can tell you that at some point I became like the local guy that everybody called to, oh, how do you do this? What do I do to get that? What else is available? So I just kind of stayed on top of all the news I could and tried to keep myself educated. And I still have that entrepreneurial spirit, which is I got to keep going and always be on the move and staying ahead of the game. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I have a question for all of you. How did each one of you remain positive in such a time that wasn't positive?
Okay, I'll give it a shot. I think because again, I'm not at the bedside, right? So I think I am the cheerleader of the organization, not the only, but that's what HR is supposed to do. I think naturally I'm a positive person. So I don't know that it was work. I think it was, man, this is what I was born for. This is why I'm here. Go team, we can do it.
So the hardest part for me was, I kind of really do take my restaurants almost like a family. A lot of my staff has been with me a long time. I mean, I have kitchen guys and floor staff that have been with me for the full 30 years. It's quite shocking. People always ask, how do you keep them? And I say, if I don't, I have no life. So I look to them as if they're my family. So I think the hardest part was making sure everyone was all right, because I feel like they all depend on me. Once I was able to get past that, it was really just about, I kept myself so busy that I had no time to think about how miserable life really was. And I have to tell you, short of having my kids home, who were miserable to have to be home and miss their last semester of college, and my daughter said it great, it's like watching a movie and never getting to find out how it ended, you know? And, but otherwise, that was kind of the upside. Staying busy kept me from realizing the downside, and we got by it. So, and thank God, the world's basically back, and in most cases, backing better than ever. So.
I think Rob said it best. My employees are phenomenal, and most of my clients are phenomenal. I think this situation brought out the best and the worst in people. And I will say we had one client in particular, and then a few little ones that we did get rid of. If their worst came out, I was not mentally in the state to deal with it, but I also figured out I shouldn't have to deal with it. So I did fire one big client and two small ones, because the situation brought out the worst in them, and I didn't have to deal with that. And the wonderful thing now is every single client I have now, I love. My contractors, I love. My employee, I've always loved. And yes, without her, we wouldn't be here. So it's a situation that was hard to deal with during that time, but it made my company stronger, it made me stronger, and everything turned out much more positive. But I think the biggest thing is a lot of times we just didn't have time. So just get through with a smile and do that. And but yeah, so again, that was another huge thing that came out of my business. And it made, like I said, it made me stronger, my company stronger, and my clients stronger as a whole. So I love that question. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank MRCC and IPG for putting this together. Thank you all for speaking. One question I have is about the PPP loan. So I would think we have experienced positive, negative impacts that it has made on businesses. But as for example, Rob, you touched on it a little bit. Can you speak on the positive impacts that you have had with the PPP loan and how it helped your business in your place?
Thanks. Put me on this one. So initially, the problem with PPP was it was a wonderful idea that nobody knew how the hell it was going to work. Nobody knew what banks were going to do it. None of the banks knew how they were going to do it. So it was like literally this thing was supposed to open up, I think, on a Friday, and no bank knew what to do. The bank that I was dealing with was, we don't even think we're going to be doing PPP. So there I was calling banking consultants and loan guys and anyone I knew. And they're like, well, we're only doing it with regular clients. And then the other banks that were doing it, they want nothing to do with me because I'm not a regular bank customer. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later, there's this magical onboarding that every bank got taken care of. And Monday was just a matter of get your information and get, and everything was crashing, but we expect all that, nothing to do with government and banking. Also, they didn't really take into consideration who was going to use it and how they were going to use it. It was supposed to be, you had, I don't remember exactly, but X amount of weeks that you had to use the money for payroll. Otherwise, and then there was percentages and all this stuff, and it really didn't work across the board for all businesses. And thank God at some point somebody said, wait a minute. Businesses like restaurants aren't even allowed to be open. So can we give them an extended period or have the starting date, the kickoff date be a little bit down the road? Can they do it for a longer period of time? Can we change those percentages? And once they did all that, if you really stayed on top of it and you managed your money, you didn't just look at it like, oh, wow, I never saw my account that high because they dumped all this money into your account in one shot. And, my business is about, if you're lucky, you make somewhere between 10 and 12%, to the bottom line. And all of a sudden you have this giant amount of cash in your bank because you don't have any bills to pay besides maybe your mortgage or your rent. You have to use the money smart. I know a lot of people that didn't do that, and a lot of people, because of that, didn't get excused at the end. But for the most part, it's been a very, very well done plan. A lot of banks been sold those loans off, or I'm not really sure how it works exactly, but I was dealing with a third party, and at first I thought I was just getting spam emails. Meanwhile, if I kept considering them spams, I would be paying back this thing and not have those PPP loans taken care of. But anyway, it wound up being great, and I think if you used it right, you used it smart, and you used it to the advantage of your business and to your employees' advantage, it was one of the greatest things the federal government ever did for small business owners.
Thank you. All right, so Chris, do you mind raising your hand? So from Chris over on the back row, once we come back from break, we'll be going into a classroom where Dean Edmondson will speak. Everybody else will remain in this portion of the room for the next set of presentations. We are waiting for 10:04. So for those of you who have not watched Back to the Future, that's the time where the clock strikes. It's not 10:04 p.m., but it is 10:04 a.m. And we were trying to incorporate the theme as best as possible.
Lightning strikes.
So the lightning will strike the clock. We have a lovely photo booth over here, so please utilize that during the break. Please get, second round of breakfast, refresh your coffee, connect with one another. Why is it not turning 10:03?
That's all right. Just know that at 10:04, lightning strikes the clock and stops it.
Does anyone have any quick questions before we have a little 10-minute break, and then we will start around 10:15 for session 2?
And it's rooms 171 right down the hall where the bathrooms are for the folks who are moving. We're good? That's okay. That's okay.